Hello chess friends, and welcome to the Art of Chess channel, and welcome to the TCEC Season 16 Superfinal. So we have the continuation, Allie+Stein versus Stockfish, and it's really a great final. It's really dynamic, but I think Allie+Stein doesn't have any chances anymore to win this Season 16. So it really looks like a neural funeral here. Allie+Stein lost too many games against Stockfish, and finally I got my predictions right, because before this finals I told you that I think that Stockfish will win this super final with a difference of 10 points. So far the result is +7 for Stockfish, so Stockfish has 7 more wins than Allie+Stein. It's unbelievable. Allie+Stein cannot win any games anymore, and even with black pieces Stockfish is really hammering this neural network based chess engine. So today I wanted to show you the last game that was played. It was from round 61, and it was a great Trompowski attack game. It was really a dynamic. Trompowski's ran really aggressive opening, and I like to watch it. I had my troubles also while playing against it, but I really like this setup that Stockfish played here, and that's why I decided to show you this game. For those who have troubles maybe to play against the Trompowski, I think this is also a very instructive chess game, because the Trompowski attack is this immediate attack after d4, knight on f6, then this immediate bishop on g5, which can be really annoying sometimes if you don't handle this opening very well. And Stockfish with this dynamic setup showed really a great opening preparation in this very annoying attack. So let's see the game. So d4 played by Allie+Stein. We have knight on f6, and as said, bishop on g5. So you have several options here. You can go e6, you can go even kick away the bishop with immediate h6, but here after doubling up pawns you have several problems. You have problems with the starship bishop, and in some occasions you stay with the king in the center, so that's also not what I recommend you here. Stockfish played this most common line with knight on e4 with a counter attack, and we have now bishop on f4. There is also here bishop on h4 ideas. This is this so-called edge variation, but here after potential g5 immediately you have the possibility to catch the bishop in an early stage of the game. It leads also to complications for both sides, but here after bishop on f4 we have this this normal line of the Trompowski attack, and now c5. This is also my recommendation, not to play something like d5, because after f3, knight on f6, well, knight on c3 can be played, and then you have the preparation to get a huge central control with the potential e4 move. So that's why here c5, very nice, immediately cracking this central pawn, because you see in the Trompowski attack the main idea after knight on e4 from white's perspective is to play the move f3 and e4. Well, it's a tricky line, because you are basically forced to place your knight on a square where you can be attacked, and then white is trying to build sort of this center here, but after c5 you have already played a counter attack and against this pawn, so it's really I think the best way to handle the Trompowski attack here. So f3, and now also a very important move for those who have troubles. I'm repeating myself, but this is really something special I think that Stockfish is playing here. I really had my trouble, so here queen on a5 is very important because of this particular line. If you don't play the move queen on a5, if you play here knight on f6, you see then d5. You see the difference with this move queen on a5 or without this queen on a5. So here after d6 you see white is building his fortress here on light squares. It looks like the same-ish attack, but it's an improved same-ish attack, because in the same-ish attack you have maybe when you play the same-ish attack against the king's Indian, you have the bishop on e3, but this bishop on f4 is much more powerful, because white has the possibility to crack and open the position with the move e5 immediately. So of course white will not play this move immediately. He will try to secure the king first, the developed pieces, but Here the e5 move is is possibly much earlier than if you have this bishop on e3. So that's why it's really annoying. You can try something like g6. You see queen on d2, the preparation to play this early flank attack like in the same-ish h4 h5. Here if you try bishop on g7, we can play really a nice setup here with c4, knight on c3, castling long, then launch h4 h5 g4 and similar ideas. When you play the move, as I said, here is the difference. When you play the move queen on a5, you're slowing down, at least for a little bit, your opponent's attack. Of course, white's never gonna give up his bishop pair in an early stage of the game. Here with this f3 move, you have already weakened the dark squares, so white is never going to give up his dark square bishop here with the move bishop on d2. If that happens, just simply take it, and after knight takes on d2, another problem. Then we can play something like g7 bishop on g6 bishop on g7, and then this bishop would be the best piece on the board. So that's why after queen on a5, white is always forced to bring this pawn in between. And now let's go back. Now knight on f6, and here d5 is also the common line for white. But now you have two best options. Stockfish in the continuation played the move queen on b6. If you want to play maybe even a more calm line, you can play immediately e6. Then after potential e4, we have e takes d5, e takes d5, and now you see we have d6. And in the continuation, maybe white will try something like knight on d2 and then c4, or knight on c4. You can simply continue with bishop on e7, knight on c4, queen on d8. It's not a problem. And now we are not so worried about this flank attack like in this line before, because now g4 h4 is also dangerous for white with the king in the center. Without this e4 pawn, you see you have traded it off. Now we have potential e-file threats with a castle here on the king side. Then with rook on e8, this king would be endangered. So you see, it's a whole different, it's a really different game. And now an early flank attack for white is not possible. So here Stockfish decides to go into a more aggressive line. It's sort of a poison pawn variation, aiming this pawn on b2. And here Allie+Stein played the move e4. Maybe the best way is to play something like bishop on c1. Then in the continuation after e6, we have the potential c4 move. After e takes d5, c takes d5, again d6. After e4, you see again white is building the fortress here. But after potential bishop on e7, maybe something like knight from g2 e2, castling, white will have troubles, although the evaluation here is slightly better, or this white has always this advantage because of playing with white. Still with some problems to castle, because always we have some discover check possibilities with the move c4. Knight on c3 will be probably the most common continuation. But here you see, instead of this bishop on c1 to protect this b2 pawn, Allie+Stein played the move e4, and now the game is really wild. Now Stockfish simply took the pawn on b2. So when I saw that Stockfish played this move, I knew that it's gonna be really a great tactical game, and in my opinion Stockfish is much better than Allie+Stein in this tactical games, because Allie+Stein has this good positional understanding, but from tactical point of view, I think really Stockfish is much better. Here knight on d2. If you try something like e5, it's really a blunder, because then you have knight on h5. We have now attacked two pieces. We have attacked the bishop and the rook, and this would be game over. So you see, this pawn breakthrough in the center doesn't bring you so much, so that's why knight on d2. And here Stockfish simply took another pawn. We have already two pawns, but we have also an endangered queen. Here knight on e2 was played, and maybe a better way for white would have been to go bishop on c7. This bishop on c7 is a very important move, because you're preventing preventing this queen to escape through the square a5. This is very important because then the queen can go back to d8 and really hide from this potential attacks of white. So that's why knight on e2, okay, we have an immediate attack, but now you see we have the move queen on h5, maybe, as I said, bishop on c7, then after potential d6, now to play knight on e2 with an attack. Okay, black can try queen on d3 or similar ideas, but now rook on b1 would be also very dangerous. You see we have a good connection, and this queen is really endangered here. You cannot play it with this bishop because you lose the b7 pawn. Basically you would have to create some more weaknesses on the queen side. Although with 2 pawns down, I think this is playable for white, still with some attacking possibilities here. After knight on e2, Stockfish uses this moment and escapes with the queen on, through the square a5, and now we have d6. Of course, taking now is not so powerful because this d6 weakness would be too much to handle after potential king on f2 and then knight on c4. Knight on c4 would be attacking this d6 weakness, and this could be really dangerous for white. So that's why e6 passing through. And now this was this whole idea of Allie+Stein that to create this very annoying pawn, sacrificing 2 pawns, but to create this positional threat here, this positional advantage, this pawn, this very annoying pawn on the 6th rank, which restricts really black's ability to play. And although, as I said, with 2 pawns down, it seems that black is really pushed away by this pawn on d6, and now black has to defend here. But if black defends here very well, I think it's really playable also for both sides. So here king on f2 was played by Allie+Stein, because of course we want to play much more freely with our knight, place it on this very nice square on c4. Of course it wasn't possible because the queen was on a5, and now we have knight on c6, a simple developing move by Stockfish, and now comes this move knight on c4. And you see queen on d8, black is really pushed away here by this knight, by this bishop, by this pawn. This pawn on d6 is now very well protected by 3 pieces, and that's why it's really annoying to play against it. So here knight on c3 was played, and now very important move here by Stockfish to get some kind of a space, g5. So you see this game becomes really dynamic. If you take bishop takes on g5, then knight on e4 is knight on g4 is very dangerous. Then f takes e4, and then we can take the bishop. But now after potential h4, we have queen on f6. You see you have to cover with the queen here on f3 because the knight was also attacked. So after queen on d4, we have queen on e3 possibilities. But now b5 would be very dangerous. You have now several options. If you take, then rook on a1 is lost, of course, but now you have this fork, knight on c7, and it seems that white will get some material back. But this is really a losing variation here for white, because here simple queen on king on d8, queen on g5 doesn't bring you so much because you have f6, and you see if you take the rook on a8, then you see bishop on a6, also very powerful. Our main target is of course the pawn on d6 because we want to take this knight out, which is the key defender. If you white tries here queen on c5, then again we have bishop on g7, and with this bishop pair I think white has some troubles, because in the next move the threat is of course bishop on d4, and you can also lose the queen. This knight is a good protective piece here around the black's king, and basically what we want to do is somehow maybe open the position for these bishops, because this is now an open game, and of course it's better for black here. So in this variation after b5, if you try something like knight on d2, it's even worse because we can simply take, queen takes on e3. You see we can support this pawn with the move a6. After potential a4 we can play b4, and here after knight on d1 we can simply take this very annoying pawn, and this is again completely winning for black. We have we grabbed this pawn, which was really the main space advantage for white. So in this continuation, black is of course completely better. So as said here, after this g5, Allie+Stein's calculations were good, and Allie+Stein didn't take the pawn and played simple bishop on e3, getting the bishop back, and aiming also this c5 pawn. But here Stockfish really continued to play very normal moves. Bishop on g7, didn't even care about this pawn on c5, because you have to now develop the pieces. You have to secure the king. The king is endangered. You cannot stay here for forever, and you cannot only depend on this two extra pawns that you have. You have to play much more active with your own minor pieces and get some kind of counterplay. So here e5, and this wasn't the best idea now probably for Allie+Stein. Maybe maybe some kind of closing the position with g4 would be better. But here after e5 we have knight on h5, and now again this g4 move would be, I think, a good idea, because after knight on f4 we could maybe just take it off and try to hang on to this pawn on e5 and continue with our space advantage. Then in the continuation to play something like knight on b5 and knight on c7. But here Allie+Stein played h4, and Stockfish simply took g takes h4. We have now f4 attacking the knight, and now of course knight on g3, fixing the knight on this very nice square. Now Stockfish gets some kind of a space, at least Stockfish get a tempo. Here after rook on h3 we have h5. This is also a very important move, because we want to have some also some spaces here for the bishop. The bishop is really blocked out, but if you play something like bishop on h6 immediately, you don't have this connection between the rook and the bishop, which is important, and you'll see in the continuation of the game why is it so important. Here after bishop on h6 there are also some tactical possibilities to play f5 if the position allows it, of course. But here after h5 now Stockfish is trying really to connect all of his pieces, and here king on g1 was played, and now bishop on h6. You see, this is now a whole different position, because now the rook is protecting the bishop. We can also play something like king on f8, king on g7, connect all of these pieces on dark squares. Here after bishop on h6, knight on e2 was played, challenging this knight. This knight is also well, the most annoying piece that white has to handle. So that's why here b5, a counterattack. You see Stockfish uses now all of his pieces, all of his pawns, and creates now some kind of counterplay possibilities. Here knight on g3 was played, maybe knight on f5 here instead of this move b5. Maybe knight on f5 would have been also a better idea for Stockfish, simply relying a little bit on this defensive setup. But here after b5 the game becomes really dynamic. Here knight takes on g3 was played, we have h takes g3, and now rook takes on h5. Again, you see queen takes on h5, maybe even better. You cannot play something like bishop on g7, because you lose here some decisive material. It's even checkmate here on the back rank. So after rook takes on h5, here f5 was played by Stockfish, and you see this is also very important. If you take something like e takes f6 with an en passant, then we can simply take the knight, and after that this f6 pawn and also this d6 pawn would be our main target. But if you take this knight immediately, then it's really dangerous. Then queen on g4 is basically, well, I will not say that it's game over, but now the queen really sneaks in. If you try something like king on f8, we have now the possibility to double up on the h file, and here of course bishop on g7 again is not possible. In the next move you lose also this this bishop, so it would be very annoying to play here for Stockfish. So you see, you cannot take this knight immediately here after f5. Queen on f3 was played, and again, if you try something like b takes c4, taking the knight, then you see again queen on g3. It's very annoying. You have to play something like king on f7, and now after bishop on c4, you have to play even queen on g8. But now rook on f5 is also very tricky. After king on e8, we can simply trade off, and now, well, the position is much more simplified. Although black is a piece up, but these pieces are really paralyzed by this space advantage that white has created. In the next move, we could have, after escaping with this rook, also play something like rook on b1. So I don't know, maybe this was better for black, but here king on f7 was played, and here a4, simply attacking this b5. But here Stockfish plays now this the next couple of moves very accurate. Plays simply bishop takes on c5. You see, again taking now this knight doesn't bring you so much, because after bishop on c4, king on f8, and now again with the same idea, you see you have also possibility here to play queen on g5. If you take, then of course rook takes on h8, king on f7, and now rook takes queen, king takes, and now f takes g5. You see, you cannot take this knight immediately, this knight on c4, but here Stockfish, as said, played now very accurate. Here first bishop on f4, here we have rook takes on f5. You see the rook was hanging. If you try something like bishop takes on f4, then knight on d4 is very powerful. You have to bring the queen on d1, and now in the next move we can take simply this this knight after rook on h3. You see, or rook takes on h8. I think black has here a favorable game, because in the next move you can also play something like bishop on b7 and really fix the position here with the bishop on c6. This knight is very powerful, it's very centralized. You have to give up the bishop pair, and here also we have this threat to even checkmate here on h2. So that's why Allie+Stein went into this very nasty tactical line with rook takes on f5, and now again Stockfish finds the best moves. Of course, e takes f5. We have queen on f4, taking the knight, but now after queen on h4, we have queen takes on f5. Again, b takes c4 is very dangerous. You cannot take this knight again. Bishop takes on c4. You see king on e8 has to be played down, and now queen on g3. It will be game over. It's really a forced checkmate. If you try to trade off the queens, then queen on g6. Here after king on d8, we have even bishop on g5, queen takes on g5, and this is game over for black. So you see, you cannot take this this damn knight on c4. But here after queen on f5, now Stockfish has this defensive resources, king on g7, and the problem is that white cannot participate with any pieces anymore in the attack. So that's why here queen on f6 had to be played. The threat was of course to play this checkmate here on h2 or h1, it doesn't matter. So that's why here you see Allie+Stein was forced to trade off the queens. We have queen takes on f6, pawn takes on f6, and now king takes on f6. Here we have a takes b5, and now you see knight on e5. Now the position is much more simplified with up the exchange. Of course, Stockfish has a favorable game. So knight on b6, not a problem. We have rook on b8, we have knight on d5, king on f7, and now knight on e7, again not a problem. You see Stockfish plays now on simple development, bishop on b7, bishop on f4, we have rook on h5. If you try something like bishop on e2 to attack the rook, then it's again not a problem, because we have rook on h2 with a direct attack on this g2. If you take the knight, then of course Rook takes on g2 is very powerful. You have to escape with the king, and now this would be a tricky line. You see Stockfish has really this deep tactical calculations. King on e6 attacking both of these pieces, so that's why bishop on f4 is of course not possible. Then you get rook on f2, and again you lose a piece, so that's why in this position you would be forced to play something like knight on g6, but again rook on h2, bishop on g4 could be the continuation, king on f7, and after knight on e7 again you can simply play rook on h1 with the simplification after king on e2, here simply pushing forward. In the next move you can also take the rook, and again this is I think completely winning for black. So that's why here bishop on g3 was played by Allie+Stein, and now you see c4 finally. Stockfish gets some space here. Of course now white simply took the knight on e5, we have rook takes on e5, bishop takes on c4, again not a problem, we can play king on f6, rook takes on a7, and now rook on c5, bishop on d3, we have rook on g5. Now of course our main target is this g2 weakness, so that's why rook on h2, but now all of these pieces get too passive for white. Here rook on a8, simply with the preparation to trade off these rooks, because if we trade off the rooks, of course again this is completely winning for black, so that's why rook on d2, and now you see Stockfish plays on a simple idea to double up rooks here on the g file, not a problem, and here rook on f2 was played, king on e5, also very powerful move. In the next move we can also take this very annoying d6. This d6 was really something to handle here for Stockfish. Here we have king on rook on e2, king on d6, knight on f5 with a check, but not a problem. We have king on c5. You cannot get checkmated only by these three pieces. You have also some defensive resources with the rook, so there are no checkmate threats here for Stockfish. Rook on c2, king on b6, really hiding behind this b5 pawn, knight on e3, and now you see we have also a very powerful pass pawn, d5, rook on d2, we have rook on e5 attacking the knight, king on f2, and now rook on f4. The king has to go here with a counter attack against the rook, so that's why rook on f8 first. We have knight on d1 escaping with the knight, and now rook on g5. We have king on h2, and now finally pushing the pawn forward. Now we have all of our pieces on the best squares. Again we are aiming on this g2 weakness. We have also the possibilities to doubling up the rooks on the g file. We can also infiltrate with our king in the game. King on c5 is now very powerful, support this pass pawn here that we finally have created. King on h1, and now rook on e8. We have king on h2. See, Allie+Stein is simply repeating moves, doesn't know what to do anymore. Bishop on d5, improving simply the position of the bishop. Knight on b2, rook on e1, rook on c2, rook on a5, rook on f2, and now rook on c1. In this position Allie+Stein resigned, because you cannot play this check on c4. In the next move we can, as I said, go simply with our king on g4, b4, pardon me, king on c3, and really kick away this bishop, and then simply push forward this pawn. Also with this, as I said, with our main target here, the pawn on g2. This is of course completely endgame, winning endgame here for Stockfish. So great game, many tactical possibilities for both sides. You see Stockfish is really playing well in these types of games. Basically Stockfish has its problems while playing this positional and slow games. When it comes to this direct attacks, to this direct combats, I think Stockfish is really unbeatable with this deep tactical calculations, and that's why Stockfish deservedly leads in this TCEC season 16 with 7 points in front of Allie+Stein. As I mentioned, I don't think that the result will change. I think in the end we will have even a 10-point difference between these two top engines, and that Stockfish will eventually win this season 16. Last time Stockfish won this season 14, Lila C0 won the season 15, but Lila C0 is not participating in this finals because it was third in this Premier Division, and now we have new neural network based chess engine in this finals. Again, it's Allie+Stein, but you see it's basically helpless against this very nice engine Stockfish. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this game. We'll follow this super finals with some more games. Meanwhile, we can watch my other commented chess games played by computers with some more Alpha C0, Lila C0, Stockfish, Allie+Stein, I don't know, Komodo, and many of these top engines. And you can also watch my best chess games of all time if you want to see the best chess games that have been ever played in chess history. And you can also subscribe to my channel if you like this content. Thank you for watching, guys, and chess is the best, of course.